Welcome to Fundraising is Funny. I'm Lynn Wester.
And I'm Clay Buck.
Join us to share in laughter and stories as we take a lighthearted look at the profession that we love so much, fundraising.
Because sometimes we just have to laugh at ourselves.
Laughter through tears is my favorite emotion. Take a moment, take a listen. Hey, this could even be called self-care.
Bring your favorite beverage and a yummy snack.
In reality, we're here to deliver on our promise. We're going to make you laugh or cringe. And if you learn something too, bonus.
See, we're serious fundraisers. We believe in this work, but we also know we do some really ridiculous things all in the name of raising a dollar. Maybe if we laugh at and with them and at ourselves, we can bring a little joy to everybody in our sector.
Now, don't worry. In that pursuit of joy, we won't name names, but the stories we share are 100% real life in the world of nonprofit fundraising.
Because, come on, fundraising is funny.
Oh, Clay.
Oh, dear.
Do I have a story for
Oh,
you?
that's an ominous. Hi, everybody.
Hey,
Welcome back to Fundraising is Funny.
we got you.
Oh, God.
Oh,
I'm
do I
scared
have
of this
you?
story.
Yeah, because he doesn't know what's coming.
I don't.
That's when it's best.
Okay, so secret. I usually do know the stories before we go. Shocking. Isn't Are you shocked?
We plan.
Are you shocked that we actually plan
this.
our stories?
Not
this
today,
one,
my friends.
This one I don't know. I do not
today,
know the
my
story.
friends.
So
No. Today's episode involves chainsaws and axes. So it's a Lizzie Borden episode.
Oh my, no.
Yeah, it's funny. Come on. It's a long time ago.
Don't lose your head over
Too
this.
soon. Oh, wow. Wow. And I think I'm.
Is this the Halloween episode?
Oh,
maybe?
no. It's not even that time of
Okay.
year.
All right.
So I'll tell you a story that happened to me pre-COVID, just to give everybody some
Context.
context. I used to travel 300 nights a year for 7 years. I
Good
spent.
Lord.
Yeah, girly. I was just.
I mean, you travel a ridiculous amount now, but that's oof.
No, Delta Marriott and I were in a
Never mind. Moving
polyamorous
on.
relationship, basically. And sometimes I cheated with Kimpton and American. But anyway,
Anywho.
I went to visit a campus to do an assessment. And, first of all, I love visiting university campuses. I have been to campuses all over the world. It's one of my favorite things. Like, I love going on campus, but inevitably this happens
Oh.
at said airport. Cause usually campuses are not in major cities. You have to get in the city, get a car, rental car, and drive to said university college town.
Right.
College town, USA, for example.
Unless you're here in Vegas, in which case it's 5 minutes from. It's literally across the street from the airport. But I digress.
But very rare. Most of them are land grant out in the middle of nowhere kind of joints. Joints, what kind of joint is this? My mom calls fast food places fast food joints. So she's going to the fast food joint today. She's going to go to Dairy Queen. Get a Brazier burger. She probably will get a fish sandwich, but that's a whole nother story for another day. Norma and her fast food delights now that she's kicking the world.
Travel.
So I go to I rent a car. I get in said car. I drive to campus. Now, I already know that when a consultant's coming into town, there's some anxiety. People worry. I don't know why, but there's this strong sense from some people that they're like, I'm going to come take their job. And I'm like, I don't want your job. I had your job and no thanks. But so as I pull into campus, usually they tell me where to park near the advancement building or the development shop or the alumni center. And I'm innately fearful.
Okay.
Because I know that as I get there that morning, I'm doing two things that are going to make people so I'll give you this story. So I pull into the parking lot. Yeah. Park ye old rental. Some mid-size.
The old rental car.
Yeah. Some mid-size sedan of some,
I'm with you.
Nondescript. I then park it, walk into the building, go into the conference room where they have me stationed for the day, get my water bottle filled, get some, they offer me coffee 3 times. And I'm like, I don't drink caffeine. Thank you though. But if you find a root beer later, throw it in my direction. I get settled in with my laptop. I get on the Wi-Fi, which is also like one of the hardest things to do at any university is get onto their free Wi-Fi. I get settled in and inevitably someone comes barreling into the 9 a.m. meeting where they're to meet with me going, I don't know what is going on. And then they stop on their heels and they're like, someone took my parking spot and they stare at me. in their boardroom in their chair that they always sit in the meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hi, good morning. And they're like, and they look around the room frustrated because A, they don't have their regular parking spot. Some idiot in a mid-sized sedan took it. And B, now someone's sitting in their chair in the boardroom staring at them, about to pry into their deepest, darkest database secrets or stewardship plans. And I have just upended their entire day by A, changing their parking spot, and B, changing their seat in the boardroom. And what it all really boils down to is we don't like change.
No. Change is hard.
And they will rail against that change. Like, I'm like, so, okay, I see here you thank your donors. No, we don't. I mean, all because I took a parking spot and, a chair in the boardroom. Now, I understand. I was looking for their name in the parking spot, didn't find it, looked on the back of the chair, no name, but we're creatures of habit, don't you know?
Sure.
Now, all this to say that we don't like change, but here's what happens, and here's why I have grace for the person whose parking spot I took. And when it's the same person, the irony there is not lost on me. But so as I do this, I realize that so many of us in the nonprofit industry are tasked with cutting down a forest. Big, large projects to raise money, $1 at a time to change the world, right? Solve hunger, cure homelessness, educate populations. And then our resources are an axe. Here's an axe. I want you to go in the forest and I want you to cut it all down.
It's interesting that you're using this metaphor because I use this a lot too. Do you know that trees rot from the roots up?
Ooh.
Trees rot from the roots up. So if you're looking at a forest, and if you're in a plain or on a mountain and you're looking down at a forest and you see that green, healthy, gorgeous canopy, that view, like you look out and you see all the trees and all the forest.
And if you notice that some of them don't touch, like they make that,
right, but you get that just gorgeous. Well,
it's rotten.
What you may not know is at the root level, at the ground level, they're rotting. So you can have this gorgeous view up top, but the roots and the forest floor and all of that is rotting and festering. And unless things happen like undergrowth, like natural fires, like forest services, like pruning, and animals going through it and that natural ecosystem, those trees are rotting from the bottom up, which means you can have this beautiful looking forest, but underneath it, it's dying.
Yeah.
And ultimately the top will die.
Oh, it'll catch up, right?
And we do that so often. Side note, this is my pitch on don't just measure total dollars, measure other metrics as well. Because just because the canopy is green and healthy and the total dollars look good doesn't mean that you've got a strong supportive root system. But I digress.
Oh, no. I love a digression.
Forest tree metaphors.
So we're out there in the forest and we're chopping down trees with an axe.
Yep.
And as we chop, what happens to the axe?
It gets dull.
It's dull, kind of like,
and you keep breaking handles.
Yeah.
And then you replace the handle, but then the head gets dull. So you replace the head. At what point you're still using an axe?
The handle. We're a nonprofit. We're taping that thing together
it's duct tape until it falls apart. Right. But we keep replacing it, saying it's the same axe, but it's really not anymore.
So the axe gets duller and duller.
Yep.
I get hotter.
The
more
meetings
frustrated.
Get duller and duller. Oh, was that out loud?
Oh, no, maybe. The emails get longer and longer. And I'm out there and I am slowing down my axe chopping.
Yeah.
And what I'm unable to do is look up from my chopping to see what the problem is.
Because I'm focused on this area right here that has to get dealt with. And if I don't do this tree is going to topple.
Okay. And previous in my career, I used to say, stop what you're doing. Stop, collaborate, and listen. Ice is back with a brand new rhythm. That's an Ice Baby quote for those of you, Vanilla Ice. Look it up for those of you young folks. And I say, stop what you're doing, look up, and sharpen your axe.
We are going to need t-shirts. That's a great phrase.
It is. However, I've come upon a conundrum.
Oh, dear.
I'm afraid that it's not axe sharpening that we need. And we don't need a grinder and we don't need to sharpen our axes.
Yeah.
Because that is incremental improvement, but it's not change. I've gone from an axe, same tool, to an axe, just one that's sharper.
Right. Okay. Fair.
And speaking of change, I need to change the contents of my stomach.
Oh, I realized you were heading for a segue there, but that just didn't.
Not too harsh. I need to change my calorie count. I need to change.
You need a snack, is what you need.
Yeah, I'm having
That's
a
what we
brain
need.
fart.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Snacks,
So
please.
snack break.
Yeah, well, let's take one, and then I'll come back and tell you what we really
Can we
need.
get those little Reese's trees since we're talking about forests? You know, the chocolate peanut
Did
butter
you know
trees?
that there's a spreadsheet out there that analyzes the peanut butter to chocolate ratio of all Reese's snacks?
I love a good spreadsheet.
My friend Ashley will tell you that trees are different than eggs, are different than pumpkins.
100% true. 100%. I can say that anecdotally. Now I want to see the data. So
we're going to Google that, and we'll be back with you.
Yep.
So we were talking about trees.
Changes.
We were talking about change.
Yes.
And
snacks.
We were talking about axes, Lizzie Borden style, right? What am I supposed to do? Paul Bunyan? Like, do people really know Paul Bunyan anymore and his big blue ox?
That's a good question.
Right? Like, I mean, come on. Right. I'm trying to do things more relatable.
Right. Trying to get a handle on the axe discussion.
Can we have a moment of silence for puns everywhere?
Get me to a penitentiary.
We were going to have a podcast, but let's have an intervention instead. I was about to ask you a question, but no. Okay, sorry. Okay, I tried. So what I realized is the advice that I was giving out about stopping and sharpening your axe is good advice.
Yep. But
it's not great advice. And I like to be great.
Okay.
I have a standard of excellence.
Okay.
I think everybody should have a standard of excellence.
They're low, but I have them.
What we need to do is instead of sharpening our axes, we need to pick up a chainsaw.
I'm with you.
We need to change.
I'm with you.
The methods. We need to change the tools we use. We need to modernize a lot of the time. And sharpening an axe.
Yeah.
And I know that there's hesitation coming from you, and I want to hear you out. But I want to make my case first. Let me make my case first. Let me say what I'm going to say.
I'm not stopping you.
Now, my father, Husqvarna user that he is, and if you don't,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Husqvarna user.
I don't.
Yep, somebody will Google that and figure out that it's a chainsaw company.
Okay.
We'll tell you that the chain on a chainsaw also needs to be sharpened, so therefore my metaphor is a weak one at best. But
what's a metaphor?
My dad is a critiquer in the highest regard. Love you, Daddy. All that to say is that I understand that a chainsaw might be a dramatic change away from an axe for some people. But I do believe that change is necessary and needed in certain aspects of our work. And I want people to get more comfortable with someone taking their parking spot. I want to get people to get more comfortable with I want people to get more comfortable with people taking their spot in the boardroom. I want us to do-si-do and do some, what is that thing with the chair, musical chairs? That would really shock the, Paul can't come to the meeting. Janice took his chair after playing the University Fight song.
Right.
he just vote one person off the meeting.
Right.
That's my fantasy land.
Right.
But so Clay, what is your point about upgrading from an axe to a chainsaw? Let me hear it.
Well, first, for all my theater friends out there who know this term, Makita. Makita is a maker of tools. Makita makes chainsaws as well as drills, etc. So all due respect to your dad, but Makita as a brand of tools also gives you the ability when you're holding a drill and working on summer stock and pulling a set together, like you're holding a Makita drill or Makita chainsaw, you get the opportunity to say Hakuna Makita. But also, I don't
even know what to say to that.
Hakuna Makita. I am with you 100%. Totally with you on board. All the things and there are also, I'm kind of, because I am very much this way in adult learning. One of the things that, well, even in secondary school, in all education, there is something about placement that aids in learning, and people tend to go to the same places because they are comfortable there, and therefore it helps them in understanding and learning. As someone who lives with ADHD and neurodivergence, I know for me, pattern and repetition are extremely important.
Okay.
So in the mornings, especially, if I don't have my set pattern, my whole day is shot.
I love disrupting his pattern.
You do it so well, right? I'm also very easily distracted that way. So just throw me off pattern. You're going to get to one of two reactions. Either you're going to be really, really cranky, or I'm just going to go with it and have fun with it. So on the one hand, I get it, right? Because the other side of adult learning strategies and techniques is when you change people's natural patterns, it actually rewires the brain and opens up new neural pathways.
That's what therapy does for me.
Right.
No, I mean, I'm seriously.
So actually literally putting a student in a different seat than where they usually sit can actually increase and change learning. So I'm a little sensitive to people having their seat, et cetera, right?
I get that. Can I also say that in order to grow, you have to be uncomfortable? Now, I'm not trying to not be sensitive to neurodivergence.
This is my point. No,
right?
This is my whole point that I'm getting to, because you're exactly right on the difference between axe versus chainsaw, because I think the key here is discretion. I think the key here is critical thinking and discretion. And that, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what you're getting to with this, is the critical thought between sometimes I need an axe to clear out this underbrush and cut down this tree.
Machete on island is what we use.
There we go.
A machete.
And sometimes I need a chainsaw to cut it all down. And sometimes, you know what?
Burn it.
I need a bulldozer and flatten the whole thing and start all over again.
Or burn it to the ground, because then new growth grows from underneath. Not that I'm advocating any sort of arson or destruction in any way.
Forest services will tell you that a burn is necessary. A controlled burn is
necessary. But
I think we can interpret that in business and use that as a metaphor. Sometimes
we need a controlled burn.
How many times do I text you and say, burn it all down?
Oh my goodness. I use that metaphor also sometimes a little insensitively, but that's between private dialogue between Clay and I, because I'm like, this dumpster fire just needs to roll down a hill and,
and
implode.
We also have, over a long period of time, said that we understand that dynamic with us. So we do not advocate people you don't know saying burn it all down. It can be taken the wrong way. Please don't do it.
Right. And I do think, though, and I'm not advocating change for change's sake. I want to be very clear.
And there's a lot of that, too, isn't there?
There is.
I'm bored. Let's change it.
No, that's not a good reason.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, you and I have that example, and I'm not going to name it specifically, but I did reach out to you a little while ago. I want to change it all. And you went, why, Clay?
I made him give me your why.
And I went, because I just bored with it. Okay, that's not a good enough reason. And that's totally fair.
It wasn't. And also, I was probably tired and crispy that day. And I was chopping.
But it was a fair response.
I was chopping around with my axe. And I was like, I'm busy. And Clay said, but I want to burn it all down. And I'm like, I don't have the time to burn it all down now.
It wasn't an actual burn it. I just wanted to change this thing. But your response was exactly right. What's the value of doing this right now? Is it absolutely necessary? So
I have this little structure, this little chart that I stole somewhere off the internet like 20 years ago when the internet was new and that was on dial-up. And that is what I do like to change is things with high lift, low effort. High lift, low ROI.
I love that.
So high effort, low return are things that we need to change. I don't need to change things that are low lift, high return. I need to change things that are high lift, low return, like donor honor rolls, or like investing a lot of money in a giving society, or tchotchke-based giving, or things like that. There are things, having lots of meetings about something, trying to gain consensus rather than moving forward. Sometimes just pick up a chainsaw, and the sound is so satisfying. It's just so satisfying.
It is. And there's just a feeling too, whether literal or metaphorical, there's just a feeling to holding a chainsaw that you're like, I have power. Suddenly I'm He-Man from the 80s, right?
And by the power of Grayskull.
The power of Grayskull, I redo this spreadsheet.
Exactly. Also, like even my dad, like he's an older gentleman, he just looks like a champ because he's also got on a lot of protective gear that we force him to wear. So it's quite cute.
But as a leader, and I guess I hadn't thought of this exactly this way before.
Sure.
As a leader, as a manager, to empower people, you sometimes can controlled burn, right?
Yeah,
this
maybe
needs
take a
changing.
Stroll through the hardware aisle and look at what you could do.
Right. This needs changing. This person needs some empowerment. They need something to own. They need something to really feel valuable. I can manage the burn from here. Let them take it. Let them run with it and give them the authority, the power, the something to feel like they are creating necessary change, right?
Now, I'll tell you about a time before we get to the punchline about when seats at a boardroom became really interesting. So another university campus. I had been asked to do a comprehensive donor survey for them, which I did. And I presented it to the advancement team. It went really well. And the VP said, I'd like you to present this to the president and the board of trustees.
Ooh.
And I said, oh boy, I'm going to have to like comb my hair that day and, you know, pretend I'm a lady like my mom wants me to be and all that good stuff. So I show up for the board meeting in my best pretend outfit. And I am waiting to give my presentation. And all of a sudden, and all the seats around the boardroom had been taken. Mm-hmm. And I was at the board table, you know, this big, long, the U shapes that you all know in front of the projector. And an older gentleman kind of wanders into the room a little bit and kind of looks around. And I'm like, oh gosh, I bet he's a board member. So I gather all my things. I back away from my seat and I go sit in a corner at a side chair and I have him take the seat. And then we have a break. And he comes over to the corner to me and says, hello, I'm Dr. So-and-so. And I said, hello there. Nice to meet you. And he said, how did you know what's going, like, how did you know to give up your seat? It turns out he was the president of the university.
Oh, that.
And the photo that I had looked online at was a few years ago.
Okay.
Maybe, you know, how they use photos for a long time.
Sure.
And he didn't match the photo.
Sure.
But I had given up my seat to the president of the university.
Yeah.
I'd given up my seat because it's the right thing to do. And there was an elderly gentleman and I just wasn't a member of the board. So I didn't feel that was my seat. Right.
Sure.
So I think sometimes too, it's also being able to accept change with grace.
Sure. And
know when it is your time to make change, when it isn't your time to make change, and know the role. But it cracked me up. So he started laughing and he goes, you really had, I said, sir, I'm no offense to you, but I do this a lot and I can't learn every president. And he goes, I like a woman with some honor. You know, I like a woman. And I said, sir, I just knew that it wasn't my table. I was just presenting later. And that turned into, we're still friends to this day. He brought me back on campus, like a lot of work, but one simple change gesture meant a lot to somebody. And other people were like, oh, yeah, so glad you gave up your chair for the president. I said, I had no clue it was the president. Mm-hmm. That's what you do.
So what's the punchline here is we're getting to whether it's small incremental change like that, necessary change, big change. What's our punchline here?
Cultural change.
Change.
I think the punchline for me is that even though change might make us uncomfortable, even when we, don't want to change or we feel a resistance, that sometimes we have to embrace that change, embrace some newness, even though it makes us uncomfortable. We have to also be mindful, I think, to your point, that disruption might actually cause some stress, some undue stress from people. Do you know what I mean? And so, but I do think that sometimes we just need to put down the axe and fire up the chainsaw.
Agree.
Whether it's a Makita. Makita to me makes the battery operated things, and I can't imagine a battery operated chainsaw. Yep. My dad would tell you right now, son, that is not a chainsaw.
Anywho.
You got to put some gasoline in there. And
there are two tools that I look to in determining change, right? The first is kind of a takeoff on a phrase many of us have heard. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Right? Ooh. In order to disrupt something, you got to know what you're disrupting. Disruption for disruption's sake is to me, what's the point? If you're going to crank up the chainsaw, you better know what you're tearing down first.
Yes.
Because you don't know if it's needed. So
look behind the bushes.
Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And then God love an Eisenhower box.
Yes, that's what I was referring to.
And I knew you were, right? The quadrants.
Good old.
Right?
Good old. Is that Ike? Eisenhower Ike?
I don't know. We'll Google it and we'll add it to the show notes, right?
We'll also add an Eisenhower box to the show notes that I'm talking about.
That quadrant of, right, the top quadrant is it's most valuable, it's most needed.
Yes.
And this is the lowest return, lowest. So we don't focus on that.
Can we also include in the show notes an affiliate link to both chainsaws so that people can buy them and then we get money?
We're going to have to include a link to Makita.
We get money and whoever gets the most money, they'll elect the battery one we'll donate it to the Chainsaw Protection Services of America or something.
I think the biggest change that we could make right now is give people time back in their day.
Okay, we'll let you all go.
Because we can sit here and Hakuna Matata the rest of the day.
Fundraisingisfunny.com, which also starts with an F, which is not what I was thinking that started with an F.
It's a wonderful.
You all have a great day, and thank you for being with us.
Means no worries for the rest of your days.